Putin News Now. Candidates to succeed Putin. Yevgeny Prigozhin, commander of the Wagner mercenary group, recently led his forces to seize the Russian military headquarters in the city of Rostov-on-Don, then turned his convoy toward Moscow, only to stop short of the capital. According to reports, he then agreed to travel to Belarus in exchange for the dismissal of all charges against him related to the rebellion. Russian strongman Vladimir Putin's grip on power was weakened by the bizarre chain of events, as was the country's ability to continue its barbaric and increasingly disastrous invasion of Ukraine. Putin is still in power for the time being, but the failed coup led by Prigozhin shows that even he is not invincible. Historian Stephen Kotkin told Foreign Affairs, "Here's the bottom line. Even if it is now snuffed out, an alternative was allowed to arise." Who are the most viable candidates to succeed Putin as Russian president? Vladimir Medvedev. After serving as president of Russia for 4 years, 2008 to 2012, Medvedev stepped down in favor of Vladimir Putin per an apparent agreement between the two men. The law professor and native of Leningrad became Putin's junior partner in the role of prime minister from 2012 until 2020. As Russia's new deputy chairman of the Security Council, Medvedev has taken a more aggressive stance on the conflict in Ukraine. He recently predicted that the fighting in Ukraine would continue for a very long time. For decades, most likely, and has threatened to launch a nuclear preemptive strike against Ukraine if it ever tries to build up its own nuclear arsenal. Concerns remain, however, about the viability of a longtime Putin lackey seizing or consolidating power. According to a story told by The Spectator's Mark Galeotti, a joke circulating in Moscow has Medvedev searching for the car's steering wheel while Putin, sitting in the passenger seat, pulls out a remote control and declares that he will be the driver. Sergei Kiriyenko, Putin's first deputy chief of staff and a man in his 60s, has been given the task of overseeing the phony referendums in the regions Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2022. Kiriyenko was a liberal reformer in the 1990s, and President Boris Yeltsin appointed him prime minister in 1998 at the age of just 42. Unfortunately, Kiriyenko's 4-month term coincided with the worst financial crisis the country had experienced since the fall of the Soviet Union, and he was forced to resign. Kiriyenko made Putin the director of the FSB, the organization that replaced the KGB, during his brief tenure as president. Kiriyenko, a member of Putin's inner circle, would probably only become president if Putin or his allies oversaw the succession process. Alexei Diamond, now 50 years old, got his start in the Russian government as Putin's bodyguard in the 1990s. He has since risen through the ranks to become deputy director of the GRU Military Intelligence Bureau and governor of the Tula Oblast. After the pro-democracy uprising in Kyiv in 2014, Diamond played a key role in getting pro-Russian Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych out of the country, and he later led the successful operation to seize Crimea from Ukraine as the commander of special forces. Diamond, who worked as Sergei Shoigu's deputy as defense minister, has been widely speculated to succeed Shoigu in recent days. Putin's method of identifying allies and then transferring them from one position of authority to another within the vast Russian state is exemplified by Diamond's rise to power. Galeotti noted in 2016, a creeping process, by which Putin's allies, including bodyguards, start getting appointed to key positions. Nikita Patrushev, the secretary of Russia's Security Council, is a prominent proponent of the theory that the West is plotting to undermine and possibly dismantle the Russian Federation. The 71-year-old was a key strategist in both the 2014 and 2022 invasions of Ukraine, and he has known Putin since their time together in the KGB. Tatiana Stanovaya told The Washington Post last year, his ideas form the foundations of decisions taken by Putin. He is one of Putin's few real advisors. Rossiyskaya Gazeta quoted Patrushev as saying, "Washington and London are again conniving with Nazism and fascism," in an interview published that March. They think they can do whatever they want in the world, including using Ukraine as a tinderbox. In an effort to strengthen Russia's diplomatic standing, Patrushev has traveled extensively over the past year and has been instrumental in overseeing the alliance with China. Dmitry Petrushev, the agriculture minister and Petrushev's 45-year-old son, has also been mentioned as a possible Putin successor. Russia's current prime minister, Mikhail Mishustin, is 57 years old and would be a natural choice as president should Putin resign before the end of his term. Mishustin, an economist by education, served as the country's tax bureau chief for 10 years before becoming prime minister in 2020. Mishustin has been relatively quiet about the Ukraine conflict, focusing instead on mitigating the effects of Western sanctions against Russia ever since the conflict broke out in February 2022, despite reportedly being opposed to Putin's decision to invade. This could put him in a position to negotiate a less favorable settlement than Putin has been willing to accept while still preserving the foundations of Russia's authoritarian regime. Alternate interpretations. Shoigu's ascension to the Russian presidency is highly improbable given Russia's humiliating performance in the Ukraine conflict. There's Prigozhin himself, whose star may have dimmed as much as Putin's due to the bizarre conclusion to last weekend's putsch. Longtime Moscow mayor Sergei Sobyanin has been mentioned as a possible successor for quite some time. According to reports, Dmitry Kozak, the current chief of staff in the Kremlin and a former deputy prime minister, had reached an agreement with Ukraine before the war, but Putin had rejected it. Putin loyalists and other Kremlin insiders are obviously not the only ones who could play a role in the event of a full rupture of the regime itself. Alexei Navalny, the jailed leader of the opposition, would be the most prominent politician to run for president of Russia after Putin's departure. Putin has ordered the murder of other opposition leaders, such as Boris Nemtsov, while others, such as tycoon Mikhail Khodorkovsky, have fled the country.